Walls. White walls. White padded walls. Day in, day out. White padded walls. Let me tell you why I see these white padded walls day in and day out. I am, or at least according to the several doctors, certifiably insane. Hallucinations, paranoia, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder, the list goes on. I was a normal, working-class man living the American dream. Had a wife. I had 2 children. My income was high, my debt was low. I had it all. Then things started to go wrong. They started to go in a direction I can't even fathom. My wife and I had always wanted to go to the British Isles, but for the longest time the money just wasn't there. Took 7 years, 2 promotions, before we could begin to think realistically. Anyways, after months of careful planning and preparation, we were on a plane flying over the Atlantic Ocean. Just me and her, no kids, no job, nothing but beautiful scenery and relaxation for 24 straight days. Fast forward a week. Having taken in many of the big city sights, we decided to see some of the smaller places out on the countryside. We packed a small bag of essentials, took a cab into rural side of England. This is where things started to go wrong. Not the whole world is coming to an end wrong, but it sure felt like it. We came across an old tailor in a moderately decorated cabin. He said he'd been making suits for over 65 years. My interest was piqued. I decided to splurge a little bit and buy one. Nothing beats the craftsmanship of a home-tailored suit, and after paying for it and calling for a cab, a picture on the wall caught my eye. It was old, black and white, mid-50s. It was a very tall, very slim, suited man standing on a grassy plain. His face appeared to be smudged out. It was old. I didn't think much of it. Even so, something about this picture was unnerving. It gave an odd vibe. Felt almost menacing. I inquired about the photo, but the old man refused to talk about it. It just added fuel to my mental fire. Days upon days had passed, and my wife and I took in every sight, every castle, every grassy knoll we possibly could, but alas, eventually we had to go home. Part of us wanted to stay, but we were exhausted. There was no way we could spend any longer there, and our flight back home was vague as we were both asleep most of the time. The drive back home was hazy. We just wanted to relax. As I pulled into the driveway, something was off. Something didn't feel right. I got the same feeling I had when I saw the picture inside this tailor's home. It was a feeling of dread, curiosity. I stepped out of the car, and when I stood on the concrete, my legs suddenly gave out, fell to the ground onto my right hand, and found myself able to force myself up. I must have been more tired than I thought. My wife helped me up, supported me. We went to the bedroom, and I was going to be asleep for a very long time. Or so I thought. That night I was plagued by dreams of the suited man on the grassy plain. It wasn't really a bad dream as much as it was his presence haunting me in my subconscious. Just standing there, unnaturally tall, unnaturally thin. Standing there without a face, an identity. No matter how hard I tried, his face never focused. It was as though the picture had come alive in my thoughts, but remained unchanged. This went on until I had abruptly woken up by the sound of a smashing lamp. I raced down to the 2 flights of stairs leading from the bedroom to the living room. Armed only with a brick that we used as a doorstop, I slowly crept to where the only lamp in our house used to be. I knelt down, picked up a piece to examine, when I felt a slight blow of wind from behind me, like a person was running past. I shot up faster than a startled cat, spun around to see what or who it was. My eyes had still not adjusted, so surrounding me was nothing but darkness. My next thought was to listen. Nothing. Not a single thing. Not even the sound of a house settling. Maybe it was my nightmare, or fatigue playing tricks on me. Maybe we had a slight tremor that caused the lamp to inch off the table. Regardless, I was tired, and I sorely wanted to get some nightmare-free sleep. It didn't happen. Throughout the rest of the night, the slender man was everywhere within my dreams. He was a bit curious, though. He only ever seemed to cautiously hide behind trees. Only in the original photo was he completely exposed. Even subconsciously, I wished I hadn't moved next to a forest, knowing that he could be lurking, watching me, analyzing me. It didn't take long to force myself awake. I looked to my left. 10:46 a.m. I looked at my right. My wife was calmly sleeping. Lucky her. I dragged myself out of bed and slowly made my way downstairs. I half expected the TV to be blaring with my kids' eyes glued to the screen, but I realized that they were at their grandma's house. They were due back that day. I was going to miss the quiet. That was all right. I missed my kids even more. And I continued down the stairs, hoping to get the game of solitaire in on the computer. And something made me feel very weak and hollow. The lamp. It wasn't broken, but it wasn't brand new either. Something took the pieces and shoddily glued them back together. The glue wasn't glue. It was black, rubbery like tar. I would have tasted it for origin, but that's never a good idea. My wife needed to wake up soon. I was starting to panic. I explained what happened the night before about the lamp and the nightmares and such, and she just rolled her eyes, told me that I was on something. Wives. Sometimes I think they do it on purpose. Anyways, I still was feeling uneasy from this morning. I managed to force myself to look out into the forest behind our house. It was very calm. Nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't completely dark, so it didn't look nearly as ominous as it usually did at night. I was badly lamenting this night in particular. Suddenly, I saw a light out of the corner of my eye, and it caused me to nearly jump out of my skin. It was just the kids getting dropped off. I swear I was thinking too much into this. I couldn't keep my nerves steady half the time. Hours passed. We played with the children. We put them to bed. We relaxed on the couch. My wife was asleep on my chest. I was nodding off. I slowly closed my eyes. It wasn't long before the quiet was broken. My wife and I were woken up. A window broke upstairs. In a panicked flurry, we ran up the stairs as fast as we could. Our eldest son, scared out of his mind, said that it came from his brother's room, and without thinking, I kicked in the door. Only the nightlight in the far corner brought light into this pitch-black room. And there he was. The man from my dreams, the slender man hovering over my son's bed. Having seen him, I acted without even knowing what was going on. Punches were thrown. Long black tendrils whipped all around. The last thing I remember was being held tightly above the ground and thrown against a wall. That's when I blacked out. When I came to, my wife was in tears. I had 3 cracked ribs. My son was gone. The slender man had my son. There was nothing I could do. But I knew that he was going to come back, and that's when I would get him. The rest of the day was full of emotions. My wife could hardly stop crying. My other son was in a constant state of shock. I could barely think straight. I did, however, manage to call the police. I told them that my son had been abducted by a man in a long black suit. I kept the details of the tendrils to myself in fear that they wouldn't believe me, but it was the least of my worries. I needed to figure out when he would return. The police showed up, took each of our statements. They examined my son's room. They did a quick scour of the forest outside. It seemed not a single piece of evidence was found. They had begun to leave when something hanging from a very high-up branch caught their eye. It was a piece of material, black, pinstriped. much like the suit that I had bought when I was on vacation. Pointed this out to the police, and they inquired to see my suit. I gladly showed them. When they opened the closet doors, what they found was beyond belief. Wrapped in my now tattered suit was my son, completely drenched in blood. He didn't look conscious. Both myself and the police were shocked and disgusted. That's when I blacked out.